welcome to everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Kirsty Boyette, and I'm the executive director of the State Theater. And we are thrilled to be doing, I think this is our fifth virtual educational seminar. And I just love it. People really connect in a different way to the film and learn a lot coming into a film if you haven't watched it in a while or watching it for the first time, and that we can offer this to our community and to our fabulous patrons at no cost. And Sam is an amazing, actually he's a board member for those of you that don't know, and he's also one of our famous local poet laureates. So let me give you a little intro on Sam. Actually, before I do that, let me give you a little bit of history. As you all know, we've been closed since March 17th, 16th. And we've been being very creative on how to engage our community in different ways. And this is one way we're doing that. And this, like I said, is our fifth. We've got one coming up. We've got two in August. One's going to be a new film called Extra Innings. And it's about this young Jewish gentleman who wanted to play baseball, and his family discouraged him from playing baseball because the baseball games were on Saturday and all that. So, and then he had family mental health issues. So we're partnering with Center for Human Services, and it happens to be suicide prevention month. And then we're also doing a partnership with Dennis Snelling, who is an author, and we're going to show the movie The Natural. And he has 5 books published about baseball, one of which is about Lefty O'Doul, and he's going to talk about the book, The Natural. And then in September, we're partnering with Judge Hurl, and we're going to do My Cousin Vinny. So we've got a lot going on, a lot of exciting things, and all this is for free. You have to pay for the movie because we can't provide the movie for with our restrictions with the distributors. And then, back it up to August 14th, we're going to be doing drive-in at John Thurman Field. And we're going to be showing, as of right now, Sandlot 2 times on that Friday night. So we're trying to be creative while we can. So I appreciate your support today. And then, so I'm going to give you a little brief bio on Mr. Sam. And then, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you can please put your questions in the Q&A, and I'll be monitoring those and asking them of Sam and Hakeem, who's to Sam's left for us sitting his right. And then Dean's in the back giving us bonus. And so they'll be answering the questions. So put them in the Q&A, and I will be asking those questions of Sam and Hakeem and Dean. And so feel free to ask questions. I see some comments in the chat. So I'll, perfect. Everyone's saying everything looks good. So please put your Q&A in the questions in the Q&A you see. Do you guys all see the Q&A in the bottom? I'm guessing you do. Okay, with that, it's my honor to introduce Sam. So Sam received his MFA in poetry from CSU Long Beach, and soon became the youngest poet laureate in California when he was selected to the position in 2004 by the city of Modesto, where he teaches English at MJC, which is super cool. Whoop. He is the editor of Curious Review Press and the creator of Ill List Poetry Slam. Which, those of you who have not been to the Ill List Poetry Slam, it is amazing, and I encourage you to come to the State Theater and watch that. It's amazing. And one of Sam's prototypes was just on America's Got Talent last week from Stockton, which was super cool. The first gentleman on America's Got Talent was spoken word, which is amazing.
And we got the golden buzzer.
Yeah, I got the golden buzzer, which is super cool. And Sam's, his debut poetry collection, Growing Up in Someone Else's Shoes, books in 2010. He's currently working on a new collection of poems, and he's also our local Ninja Warrior. And so we're very excited to have Sam be part of this for educational seminars. With that, I'll turn over to Sam.
Right on.
And thank you, Sam. So we all saw his amazing pre-film talk. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask him on the bottom. And Sam, do you want to make any comments, questions?
Yeah, no, I'll just jump in and reiterate just a couple of things that I said in my little pre-film talk. And if there are any teachers out there, help me out. But this film was extraordinarily important and pivotal in my career as I was trying to navigate what I should do with my English major. A lot of my friends went into advertising and went the Hollywood route. But then I saw this movie and I thought, man, that's cool. That's fun. And Mr. Keating was just an idol. And I kid you not, I swear for about the first 10 years of my career here at MJC, I rewatched Dead Poet Society every semester just because you get into these lulls and you think, no one cares. None of these students listen. I'm worthless. And then you watch that movie and you think, no, there's still hope. And so that movie just continued to remind me semester after semester to help young people and all people be free thinkers, think outside the box. So anyway, it was a pleasure to rewatch it. Probably hadn't seen it 10 or 15 years now, but it was wonderful to rewatch. And, this guy's a big film buff. So, I know the technical aspects of the film aren't like superior, but they're good enough. But I wanted to show these two. Like, I'm not the kind of dad who can open up an engine and show the kids all the parts and how they work. I'm just not that kind of dad. I'm the dad who's like, read this poem. And so showing them that movie was about as close as I'm going to get to showing kids how to, deconstruct an engine. So their reaction, I'll ask them for in a second. But, it was an inspiring film. Dean, what was your reaction to the end of the film?
I just broke down. I started crying. It's just so sad.
Yeah, that ending, I think it was done so well because this guy has me watching some very bloody, gory films, and they could have went a lot of different ways, but the suggestion was obvious, and it was so much more powerful. I think suggestion can often be more powerful. Subtlety can be more powerful than in your face kind of blood and gore. What was your reaction as a newbie?
Well, I thought the ending was super bittersweet. I'm glad that it ended the way it did, with only a few students standing up when Keating was leaving instead of the whole class.
Yeah.
If it was the whole class, that would have just been corny.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I made that comment in my pre-film because you notice a lot of things when you have to talk about the film, but when they shoot that tear-jerker ending after Neil Perry, after his suicide, and all the kids sign the note, and all the kids are standing on the desk, and Ethan Hawke's character comes full circle from the shy kid to the first one standing on the desk, and we're all choked up, and Captain, my captain, and everybody's standing, and they did such a great job showing everybody standing. But then when they cut away to the long shot, or is that a medium shot?
Yeah, it's the whole class.
Then you see how many people didn't get the message. And I think that is so symbolic of our culture, right? We just have people that no matter what will not think outside the box, will always be in lockstep with whatever the rules are, whatever administration wants. Then there'll be those who cut against the grain. And obviously Keating's goal was to have more of those people and than the others. I even like that kid who did the, remember that kind of jockey kid who did like the cat sat on the mat? Even that dude stood up, right? So that's the power of poetry.
Okay, so Sam, we have a question here from Betty Lee, sorry. First, thank you all for so much for doing this. I'm so grateful for the engagement with the community during this time of social solidarity. This movie has been my favorite since 8th grade, and I'm now 44, yikes. My question is, in light of the current world events, how do you think Mr. Keating would have reconciled beware the danger of conformity with this mandate is infringing on my freedom?
Uh-oh, we're already getting political. What happens when I click answer live? Is that, you would like to answer this question live? Okay. Hi, Betty. That's a great question. And, I'm just going to give you my best answer. I'm not Mr. Keating. He was a fictional character. What's going on in the world is crazy right now. I think this boils down to, like, would Mr. Keating wear a mask or would he not wear a mask? On the one hand, it is an element of conformity. We've been asked to wear masks. On the other hand, it is for the safety and protection of other people around us. So I like to believe that Mr. Keating, as an educator, would have erred on the side of caution, and he would have supported the science, and he would have been respectful of other people and their health and safety. It's kind of like there's a scene in the movie where I think, was it Nawanda? Who made the phone call to God?
That was Nwanda.
Nawanda, right. Remember the phone call to God? And he thought he was going against the grain. And Mr. Keating chastised him for that and said, there's a time and place. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said, basically, this ain't it, And so I think that's probably would be Keating's response to the mask. I think he would have worn the mask and would not have seen it as an infringement on his freedom. He would have seen it more as a selfless act to save the health and lives of other people. I think in his heart, he cares for people. That's my best answer, Betty.
I have another question from Alan Zacharias. Today's high school and college students are being driven to careers that pay and have a future. How does this movie speak to the relevance of the liberal arts as a career path?
Yeah, that's so, I think there's a couple answers to that. I think that there was the student who had kind of the buzz cut, and there was an early scene where Mr. Keating said something to him like, as a business major, how does poetry even apply to you, And I think this movie isn't so much about picking a major in art and, moving in that direction. It really is about being a poet in your heart, whether you're a business person or a lawyer or a doctor. Like you can be both. You can have the heart of a poet, the heart of a philosopher, the creative parts of your life can scream out loud, but you can still, be a surgeon. So I think it's really about finding the heart of Carpe diem, and seizing the day in your relationships with other people and having romance. The best quote from the film is, I'm not going to get it right, but that idea that, business and engineering, all those things are important, but when it comes down to life, it's really about love and relationships and romance. And that's what I think is the spirit of the film. And so you can do that and still be an accountant. Right? You just don't want to lose sight of that part of your heart and that creativity. So anything to add?
No, you got it.
So yeah, but the liberal arts, I think there's just so much value. I'm on, Twitter and TikTok and all kinds of young people. I watch how they're being influenced by social media and the influences on there. And 99% of what they're being peddled is how to make money fast, selling stuff on Amazon, becoming a famous influencer by pushing out content. And it really does come down to the bottom line of making money as fast as you can. And that's cool. Everybody needs to make money. But what are you sacrificing along the way? And how do we define success? Is it just the amount of money in your bank account? I don't think so. I think anybody who has kids and is living like a middle-class life is like, dude, I'm really happy. Would I be happy with millions and more dollars? I don't think I'd be happier. I think I would just have money to spend on people. I wouldn't make me happier. I'm pretty happy here. So, the liberal arts aren't going to make you a lot of money, but I think the education that you get by reading and learning about characters and learning about romance and love and learning how to navigate relationships and learning about culture and religion and really doing what Keating did, which I think was the most important idea, was standing on that desk and saying, we need to see the world through different eyes, right? We need to change our perspective. And not to make it political, but that's, the Black Lives Matter thing. This is an important aspect. We need to see the world through the eyes of people who aren't like us, right? Who don't look like us, who have different lives and histories and backstories, and empathize with that. And to live in your bubble and just say, this is wrong, they're wrong. It's like, no, let's listen. Maybe they're not totally wrong. Maybe we can find some kind of concession and compromise and understanding. We need to come to that place of understanding instead of just shutting it down because we have a very narrow view of the world. So stand on your desk and see things differently. But when you do that, it does make you more vulnerable, and no one likes to admit if they're wrong. No one wants to change their ideas or attitudes. That's the scary part, I think.
Yeah. My question next is for Hakeem. So on the technical side, as a film producer, how do you look at that, the way the film was produced back then and how you produce films now? On the technical side, what's your input on that? Like how the screenshots from looking up on the stage, or looking down on the them standing on the tables, and what's your thoughts on the technical side?
The movie still looks gorgeous. There's some fantastic cinematography, great directorial choices. Like all the editing is on point, like when to cut to which character, who to focus on during what scene. There's no complaints on like a technical standpoint, aside from maybe some of the music that could have been better.
Yes.
Yeah, no complaints there.
Do you think it's how do you think it would be cinematography wise if it was filmed today? Would it be different?
Maybe there'd probably be a lot more music.
Yeah.
Emotionally manipulative music.
Yeah.
It wouldn't look as grainy. Well, because it'd be shot digitally rather than on film. So it would lose a lot of its charm, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but it would be a lot more streamlined or mainstream, I guess. More unsubtle with what it's going for. Like there'd probably be a scene with Robin Williams explaining the message of the movie, like directly to the audience at the end.
Yeah, subtlety probably would go out the window.
Yeah.
I also think, this movie, I mean, if I could be critical, it was filmed in 1989. It was also filmed at a private school. It's an all-white cast, all dudes, all white male teacher. I mean, it's a very, heteronormative, white movie. That today probably wouldn't fly. It would be seen as probably sexist, probably in some ways borderline racist. So I think those things would probably stand against it. I try, and this is the problem with our culture today, and I don't want to get into this, a big discussion, but we keep looking at things in the past through a 21st century lens, and I think that's really a difficult thing to do. And what happened in the 80s is going to be different than the 90s, and it's going to be different than 2000. And I promise you, all of us are in trouble in 2030 because we're doing some things right now that are going to be really wrong in 10 or 15 years. We just don't know it yet. But this movie lacks gender diversity. And that's okay. I mean, this is a kind of a boy film, right? This Mr. Keating is trying to get these boys to not be stereotypical boys, right? Who are just totally narrow-minded and focused on the bottom line of their career, which is how much money they're going to make. He's trying to open their hearts up, and give them empathy and understanding. And that's why I think it was both funny and kind of terrible when I guess it was Nuwanda who brings the girls down to the cave for the first time, and I can't remember the redheaded dude's name. He was just like, "What's going on? Why are there?" They're shocked by these women entering this male space, and he coerced them to coming, suggesting that they could join when they couldn't join, and then he lied. He plagiarized those poems, which, fun fact, true story, in my own day, I memorized, she walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and also because I wanted to do the exact same thing in my late teens, early 20s as Nwanda, and court women with these great romantic poems of the past. It didn't work at all. Not
But
at
you have
all.
a beautiful wife, so it must have worked somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I started writing my own poems. That helped. But I appreciated that the boys recognized that if I'm going to attract the opposite sex, that I need to do more than just look good and have money, right? Because those girls were impressed. Like, wow, did you write that? Right? Something came from well, at least they thought it came from the heart. They lied. But I at least thought they were moving in the right direction. Right?
So we have another question from Danny. Hi, Danny. He said, I can see how this might generate different emotions when watching at different points from your life. In high school, maybe the feeling is straight inspirational, but watching as an adult, maybe it's more about the qualities of inspiration and how our words and actions affect others. Sorry. How has it changed for you viewing it today as opposed to 1989?
Wow, that's a great question. I mean, I had a teacher, and I think so many people in America have the story of the teacher who changed their life. And I'd love someone to do this research, because when you break down those teachers, I bet like 90% of them are English teachers. There's always a pivotal moment in a teenager's life. And for me, I had a high school teacher named Miss Podgorski. I don't know if she was using this movie as her inspiration, but she had an assignment, and it was a Carpe diem assignment. It was the first time I'd heard that phrase. And in high school, she explained Carpe diem. She gave us credit for doing something that scared us. So I remember writing a song. I only knew 3 chords on a guitar, and I wrote a song and I sang it in front of the class, and I was not a singer. And it was the scariest moment of my high school life, but I was infused with this idea of doing something brave and daring and courageous, that seizing the day. So as a high school kid, when I learned about Carpe Diem and then later watched the film, it was really about that. It was just really about personally, how do I break out of my shy shell? And then 10, 15 years later, when I became a teacher, then it was, how do I now be Miss Podgorski in the lives of other young people and encourage them to become free thinkers? And then really showing it to my kids, I forgot how powerful those messages are about, going against the grain. And then as a poetry teacher, when he rips up that introduction, and they had the graph of how to write a poem and stuff, and he said, hey man, just throw this all away and write from your heart. And that I think those ideas are really a part of my teaching now. So initially it was very personal, trying to seize the day myself, and now it's trying to pass that message on. So I think that's how things have changed. Do you guys feel like seizing the day more now, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Carpe diem. Someday I'll get that tattoo.
A question from Bethany. Considering the times, what do each of you feel that male masculinity is still an issue when finding the type of camaraderie or brotherhood? What parts of this film depict inspiration for you, or find that type of camaraderie in our community?
First of all, hello, Bethany. Bethany is one of my greatest online poetry students. So let me read this. I can see it here. Do each of you feel that male masculinity is still an issue in finding this type of camaraderie? So men, this is true based on sociological readings. Men bond by doing, and men bond by and women bond by talking. So, my wife has a standing appointment with her best friend every Tuesday at 1:00, and they talk on the phone for an hour. I don't have such meetings with my male friends. What I do with my male friends is we do stuff. It's hard with COVID, but hey, let's go work out. That's code for let's hang out and talk and bond, but we just don't say it. So men bond by doing. So there is a barrier there for sure. But I think when these boys travel down into that cave, that's symbolic of them, kind of going deep within themselves, shedding the layers of masculinity, and opening up their hearts and minds to each other and sharing. And I think again, Nwanda, Charlie, is that his real name? Was it Charlie?
I don't remember his real name.
Someone type it in the comments. I forget Nwanda's real name, but when he played that saxophone, he sounded like shit, forgive me. And he's honking in people's faces, and he's just like being a boy, just an annoying boy. But then on a dime, he changes and he plays this super slow, melodic, beautiful, song, I guess. And then all the boys just kind of lit up like, wow. And so I think there are layers. And if you can get past those layers in a dude, and you can get to their hearts, then you can bond and love each other and build a community from that. So it takes an open heart and a safe space, but it can happen. I want to go back. I saw
Nicole.
Yeah.
Nicole.
What is
So we basically teach the kids to conform for 12 solid years, and then we change it up. Do you think you start teaching kids in elementary school to be critical thinkers instead of teaching kids to shut up, listen, and do as you're told?
When you frame it like that, Nicole, on the one hand, be critical thinkers. On the other hand, shut up. Absolutely, we have to try to teach kids to be critical thinkers. Elementary and high school teachers have such hard jobs. If I were Secretary of Education and I could wave a magic wand and make it happen, we would decrease class sizes considerably, 15, 20 students max, right? We'd spread students out, not because of COVID, but because we need individual attention for each student, and we need time. Critical thinking takes time. One of the reasons parents beat their children, spank their butts, is they don't have time to discuss. I need you to put your shoes on. If you don't put your shoes on, you could possibly step in something, and you don't have time for that. It's put your damn shoes on. No, pow, right? And so we teach conformity in that way, right? Do as I say, there's no discussion. To really educate, you have to really take time and give students choices, help them understand the consequences of their choices and all that. And we don't have that kind of time, not with 35 students in a classroom. So I think it's not as simple as should we or shouldn't we. There's a lot that has to go into changing our school system fundamentally before we can start teaching greater critical thinking.
So our next question is from Phil Trumpeter. Hi, Phil.
Phil!
Mr. Keating had such a serene disposition, always unflappable in the face of resistance from the student, challenge from the administration. What lessons did you learn from his magical teaching style?
Oh my gosh, how many lessons? He was unflappable, unwavering. I think, I'm trying to be really careful with my words, but he's teaching in a room full of boys, right? And if you're a male authority figure in a room full of like 30 boys, then you can kind of tease and poke fun and pick on, the class in a kind of a different way. And so I think he did that well, right? He just took them down a notch, but still allowed them to maintain their dignity and come to the conclusions. Even when, like that guy who did the cat in the hat, or the cat sat on the mat, like that was his poem. And I'm thinking, if that were me in my class, I probably would have had some words. And he said he said, "Hey, you rhyme." He had some kind of compliment about that. I mean, he found a way to say that was good, but you can do better, and I know you can do better, right? And I found myself saying that with a lot of student writing. When it's bad, instead of saying this is bad, I often will ask, was this really your best effort? Am I reading your absolute best effort? And I want them to be aware, self-aware, I should say, and go, yeah, I did turn in a piece of, I did turn in some junk, and he caught me. I'll still give you credit for it, but like, I want you to know that I know you're not doing your best. So I guess in that way, Mr. Keating has helped me understand, like, don't just be punitive and mean, like, help them understand that they're better, or they can be better, and they're just not putting forth their best effort. And that's the comment we often get, I think, as parents, myself as a young person, and sometimes with the boys, is like, you'll get the comment, your child, your son, your daughter is really bright, really smart, but they just don't apply themselves. They just don't put in the effort. Like, they know how smart your child is. They're just not demonstrating it often enough. And I think Mr. Keating helped those students understand that you've got to do your best.
What I found interesting, and Sam, maybe you could talk to this, is how he taught unconventionally.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
being very reprimanded for that.
Yeah.
Ended up getting let go for that. I mean, how do you, I feel like you as a professor, you as a person, and you as a friend, you balance the unconventional versus, do you stand on your table, and like, how do you manage that, and how
I mean, I love, when he did that, like, soccer ball scene or whatever, read the poem, kick the ball, read the poem, kick, those kind of kinesthetic learning. I mean, this is like how we should be teaching during COVID. We should be outdoors, kicking balls around, reading poetry. So when I was younger in my teaching career, especially during the summer, I would take my students out to a tree, and we would just sit under the tree, and that was kind of cool. And I just felt like Mr. Keating, like, we're gonna read this, instead of reading and talking about the book and sitting in rows, like, let's just go outside and have a discussion under a tree. And they knew that was coming every week, and so they would bring, like, blankets, and we did that a few summers. So taking them outside was cool. Sometimes I would make them, journal and do free writes in class, but I'd say, go outside. I want you to go outside for 15 minutes and come back. And I want you to take notes and eavesdrop and find dialogue and come back to class with all of the things that you saw and you heard. You have 15 minutes, go, right? So getting them outside. So I did, I'm talking out to myself here, because I'm thinking, damn, I did some cool things. What happened? Now, I mean, we do a lot in class. We do a lot of desk, well, not now because of COVID, but, I always get students in groups. There's a new theory for the last 4 or 5 years, the saying, or maybe 10 years now, the saying has been, for today's learner, the Socratic method is dead. You cannot just lecture for an hour. I mean, kids can't even sit through 60-second TikToks. It's got to be 15 seconds if you want people to pay attention, because I know my analytics, and on my TikToks that are 60 seconds, the watch time is usually like 20. Like, they're done after 20 seconds, right? So if you think Google killed the attention span 15 years ago, dude, TikTok is destroying it, right? So it's no longer appropriate to be the sage on the stage. You have to now try to be the guide on the side and get students to interact with each other, discuss things. And you're just there to kind of facilitate and maybe push and prod, but like, students have to kind of come to their own understanding these days. And you're just, you're there to facilitate more so than dictate. And I think, Keating was ahead of his time in 1989. And the book, this was based on the screenwriter's father and his own experience in a private school. So that must have been, gosh, he was probably in the 50s in that private school, thinking about his own kind of eccentric teacher like Mr. Keating. So those guys were ahead of their time. Any other?
I don't see it, but do you want to talk a little bit about the social pressure of a young man being in that liberal arts, and the pressure from parents, and do you
Well,
see that from?
I get, the students who attend MJC are not always going to be the affluent, loaded, rich students that go to this school. Neil Perry's father is probably the best example of, he's kind of a working class guy. I'm not sure it's clear in the film what
He's a banker.
was he a
something like
banker?
that, yeah.
They made it clear that Neil Perry's family was not particularly wealthy compared to the other families. And so the father absolutely demanded the best of his son. You've got to be a doctor or whatever. In community college, I can't tell you, within the first week of my general English 100 comp classes, I asked my students to write me a letter about some of their challenges that they're facing. And over, that pressure that they have from their dad, usually, sometimes mom, to be a computer engineer. I remember this guy who's Indian. He would, just this last semester before COVID, he was crying. It was the first week of class. He's crying because his dad wants him to be an engineer. That is it. And he has zero interest in computer engineering. And he likes music, and it was, anyway. Oh no, I'm sorry. He wants to be a law enforcement. He wants to be a police officer. That's what it was. He wanted to be a law enforcement officer, and his dad, says you have to be a computer engineer or whatever. So a lot of young people in my classes face tremendous pressure from their parents to not only pick a major that the parents chose, or a lot of them don't even want to be in college. Their parents just said, hey, look, if you have two choices, you either pay rent or get the hell out or go to college. And that's hard. Kids are already not super motivated. And then when they're just there for the parents, that's hard. So, I think one of the struggles that a lot of young people face is finding their passion. And I've learned with this guy, this is Hakeem, as you know, and this dude loves film.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned in my little pre-film talk that the Mr. Keating in me loves it. Dude, be creative, make your movies. But then, the Neil Perry dad in me is like, dude, you need a job that's going to pay the bills, and there's not a lot of Spielbergs out there. So we're going to support them no matter what. But that is a difficult thing for parents to navigate, like your child's success and ability to get a job, live a good middle-class life, or chase their dream. But what I have learned from people, and I never thought of it this way, is when you find your passion, that is a gift. You're so lucky in your life when you find it, because a lot of people flounder and tread water, and they just I don't know what I love. Hopefully that love translates to an income. But finding your passion early at 16, 17, 18 almost now, that gives me happiness, and joy that I didn't understand until people started telling me, dude, your son found his passion. I'm 35 and I still don't know what the hell I like or what I want to do. And so when you can find your passion and then chase it, and if you can do that early, awesome. And sometimes that route isn't college, but yeah. I do still think there are college classes that everybody can benefit from, even if you don't fully get your degree. You know what I mean? So I'm biased.
Question from Kelly. She said, I feel like the main familial dynamic here was that parents first disappoint their children now, rather than having them regret artistic pursuits later in life. Do you think there was a way for Neil Perry to convince his father to allow him to pursue acting? Do you feel this was a warning for parents to allow their children to express themselves? I also feel that when Mr. Keating said art, beauty, and romance are the things we live for, was a form of foreshadowing
Hmm.
It was a recurring theme. And after Neil's father told him he was not going to Harvard and it was not a prison sentence, I could tell that Neil was going to die. Also, could you make me watch the movie? Sorry. How could you make me watch the movie? I didn't want to cry today. I'm supposed to be studying for linear algebra's final, Sam.
That's great. What a
Apparently, this is Kelly that knows you well. Well, thanks, Kelly.
I love the contrast of studying for linear algebra, linear. That's I joke with my students, and not to take anything away from math. Math is super important, but math is very linear and logical, and 2 + 2 is 4. There's absolutely no gray area in at least most of the math that we learn. I know that the most advanced mathematics gets really abstract, but linear algebra goes like this, and then creative writing and literature. I mean, there's all these deeper meanings, and you're just the tip of the iceberg, and there's so many ways to interpret. And so I love the contrast. Let me go back to that question. So I feel like the main familiar dynamic here was that parents preferred to disappoint their children now rather than have regret artistic pursuits later. I hear that. Do you think there was a way for Neil Perry to convince his father, etc.? Yeah, do you feel this way? The other problem here, if I could masculinize it, is, certainly not every father, none of the fathers watching, not this father. Men in general have a difficult time talking. Fathers and sons, fathers have rules and goals for their boys, and those open lines of communication don't always exist. When I'm in my classes talking about gender roles and stuff, and I ask my students, "Oh, what is your dad? What is it?" They're like, "Dude, my dad doesn't talk." Even the girls in the class, like, my dad has never said. There are many, it blows my mind. There are many, 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 many young people in my classes and outside whose dad has never said, "I love you. I'm proud of you. I care about you. I want the best for you." Any of that. I mean, maybe they do it by paying the bills, by keeping the lights on, right? That whole kind of symbolic way of showing love, but they don't say it. And so that's the relationship I think Neil Perry has with his dad. There's just no communication. And to start those deep conversations when you're 17, 18, trying to pursue the arts, when your whole life there's been very little to no communication, that takes such a tremendous amount of courage. And when you watch Neil Perry's mother, right? What did you guys notice about Neil Perry's mother?
She wanted
She was really passive.
Right. And what?
She didn't speak to her husband at all, and she also did care for him.
You could see in the eyes of Neil Perry's mother that there was some concern, some care there, some sadness there. But did she even say one word in this film?
She said to, like,
I'll
listen
check
to her
outside when they couldn't find him.
Yeah.
That was like
Yeah,
the only line
nothing
she said.
nothing important, right?
Yeah.
And I bring that up because what that tells me is that Neil Perry's father has ruled this house with an iron fist, that the mother can't even intervene and discuss and help her child. So to answer your question, Kelly, Neil Perry's father set up a relationship with his son that there will be no discussion, and the wife doesn't get involved. And so Neil Perry's doomed. I mean, he is just talking to a wall, and the only escape that he felt he had, sadly, was suicide. I mean, just awful, but that's the powerful symbolism of the film. I think outside of the film, there are very tough fathers who hopefully you can break down and convince that art was important. I was hoping after he saw his son play Puck in the film, he would have, and maybe to your point, it would have been a different film today. The dad would have been like, "Oh my God, you're great. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Pursue your dream." And then it cuts to, have you guys, another movie to watch is Billy Elliot, which I don't think you've seen.
I've seen it.
Seen Billy Elliot? No. Billy Elliot, super tough father, coal miner, etc. But by the end of well, I probably shouldn't spoil it, but let's just say that father came around. Neil Perry's father didn't come around. And maybe like me, at the end of the film, when Neil Perry's father is lunging for the table and the gun, what were you guys feeling when he did that? We knew that he was.
He brought this upon himself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What?
He pulled the trigger. I mean, he loaded the gun. He just pulled the trigger.
Come here, man. Did you hear what he just said? Say that again.
His father loaded the gun. He pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, Neil Perry killed himself, but his father, as Dean said, his father loaded that gun. His father made that circumstance happen, you know, absolutely. And there's just no way out for Neil. Terrible. That was devastating.
I know you're not a child psychologist, but we have another question kind of related to what you're talking about. What advice would you give parents who are trying to tap their child's passion while helping them find independence and success in life? That's not on there. It's from Alan. Sorry, he's sitting next to me.
What advice would I give? Say that again. What advice would I give parents?
What advice would you give parents? Child's passion. Sorry, let me start over. What advice would you give parents who are trying to tap into their child's passion while helping them find independence and success in life?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think you can, you know, I think you can. So I really believe in balance, and you know, I'm a little bit old school, but like I have my day job, and then I have other creative pursuits. And I like to bring up my friend Joe. They know Joe, Joe the tile guy. Joe does tile. He has a skill, and he's phenomenal at it. But Joe also loves music and DJs and collects records and does these record swap events. And he has this powerful passion for music. And so he pursues that at night. He pursues that on weekends. But during the day, he makes money laying tile. And that's kind of where his life is right now. Like, this is the tile, this is the music, and this will start to get better and better and better, and maybe he can do less and less of this. But I think you try to find that balance early on where you can continue to pursue your art while at the same time doing, you know, whatever your day job is. I know I listen to a lot of influencers online, and they're just like, you're young, just for the next 10 years, go for it. You'll still be 30. Big deal. You got another 70, 80 years. So there's a term in sociology. You know, I'm 40. I'll be 45 tomorrow. I'm Jen.
Happy birthday.
And you know, I got married at 25 and kids at 27, 28, etc. That was pretty standard. These days, boys and girls are getting married in their 27, 28, 29. And so they've expanded their adolescence into their 20s. And so the term is adult-olescence instead of adolescence, adult-olescence, right? So these young adults have just bought themselves 10 more years. You know, they're getting married late 20s, early 30s, right? So the 20s for a lot of today's generation is like our teens, right? And so they have a little more time to kind of take some of those risks, find their passion and fail, you know? And so I think, to answer Alan's question, part of our generation is like, dude, you've got to get it done, get your degree, get married, and you know, go through these very strict sort of steps to have a life. Now, different. I think there are just so many paths to success, and you've got a good decade after your teenage years where you can try and fail, and then by 30 go, okay, time to go back to school. And that's why I love returning students, you know, because they come back and they're like, dude, I had a crappy job, I tried to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm back. And then they, you know, that I think is also kind of uniquely American. Boy, you can start over in this country. You can start over at 40, at 50, at 60. You can reinvent yourself. And that is almost a uniquely American trait. And that's great. So
we have another question from Danny. Education plays a significant role in dead poets. It's almost like a character unto itself. What are
Mhm.
the movies where education plays such a significant role in the film have inspired you?
Hmm.
Ooh, other movie, movies. That might be a question for you. Movies were
Whiplash.
Whiplash was crazy good. Whiplash, I mean, it's a different kind of education, but he was maybe too harsh still. I don't know what I learned from him as a teacher, but the persistence of that student whose passion was so strong, that was unbelievable. I mean, he broke up with his girlfriend, if anybody's seen Whiplash, because like, I know how this is going to go. I want to drum. You're going to want to go out on dates, and I don't have time for that. I'm trying to think, Stand and Deliver, of course. Stand and Deliver. Jaime Escalante is one of the most iconic sort of teachers. And then soon after that came Coolio's version with Michelle Pfeiffer in Gangster's Paradise. But those rags to riches stories where the down and out students come in contact with an inspiring teacher who changes their lives. So Stand and Deliver. And I haven't seen it, but I read the book because it was about a teacher from Cal State Long Beach, Erin, I forget her last name. The Freedom Writers is the book. So that was powerful. Yeah, but there are, I'm drawing a blank, so you could type them in the comments here. I'm sure there's dozens of movies that definitely show you the inspiration. And this is why education is so important, but the teachers in the classroom are so damn important. I mean, don't tell anybody, but I kind of have a problem with tenure. Oh my God.
It's a question from Justin.
No good, you cut me off before I got too controversial.
Oh.
What? Say that again.
Sorry. Say that again. You cut off in my world. So.
Oh, good. No,
what was the last thing you were saying?
I was just talking about teachers, and I don't want to get in trouble for it, but we have a thing called tenure in college and in some high schools. What? So with tenure, teachers essentially cannot get fired, and
You're frozen in my world.
Am I frozen? Oh, Bethany says no. So I think I'm just frozen.
Are you frozen in my world? You're not frozen in my world. You are frozen in my world. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I hope.
I can hear you and you're frozen, but I'll keep talking. So the question from Justin is, there was no doubt that Mr. Perry loved his son. When he finds himself in the office, he cries out, "Oh, my boy." I think he wishes for Neil to rise above Mr. Perry's meager station. It may be that Mr. Perry felt that showing emotion would reveal weakness that would make his son's loss vulnerable to the harsh realities of life. We have to remember that this film is set in, I think, 1959, as America in the verge of losing the veneer of innocence to the reality of simmering turmoil that will boil over in the 60s.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to contextualize this film for sure in that era. And so, dads were different, let's say. But to that, I would say, that old cliche, like the road to hell is paved with good intention. There's no doubt Neil Perry's dad loved his son, but the way he showed his love did not reflect what Neil Perry needed. So yeah, I mean, I know my parents love me and my mom loves me, but when I think about some of the things, didn't feel like love, when you're getting beat with a belt, but they're doing it to help you be a better person. So they're doing it out of love. But
I like this question from Kelly. Why do you think the parents were so quick to blame Mr. Keating? It's almost like they're angry and that he gave their children hope.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I think we need scapegoats, right? Nobody wants to look at themselves and say, what did I do to contribute to this? Why is my child like that? You know, we want to defend our children as these perfect entities and go, oh, it must be the school system that's doing this, right? And we get this now. And again, I don't want to politicize it, but I think I incorporated just a little tiny bit of Trump's speech about schools at his rally. You know, he said school, and it's a very powerful mantra in the far right world on the Twitter, which I'm obsessed with. But, you know, schools are just these liberal institutions. They're indoctrinating students, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not the case. You know, we are encouraging free thinkers. And so sometimes young people, they come into a class and they come into contact in their class. I tell this to my students, I go, look, I don't have to say anything. You might come in opposed to, let's say, gay marriage, totally opposed to homosexuality in any way, shape, or form. But then you spend an entire semester with a student who's gay. He or she is in your group. He or she is collaborating with you. He or she, you start to see them as a human being, right? And all of the stereotypes and superficialities that you believed in are gone. You see that person as a person, and then your attitude starts to change. Not because of anything I said, but because you are living now in a world where there's a great amount of diversity around you and you're interacting with people outside of your bubble, and your attitude starts to change. I didn't indoctrinate anyone. They just sort of came to that as a free thinker who was now, you know, in a relationship, in a student to student relationship with someone who is Black, who is gay, who is trans, who is something outside of, you know, their understanding of normal. Right? So schools can do that. And if your son or daughter comes home and says, hey, I think differently now, parents go right for those damn teachers and the principal, and what are you doing to my child? Like, dude, nothing. I'm teaching them where what the semicolon is. You know, so I think they needed a scapegoat, and the school, right? We do that. We see this all the time. You know, we fire CEOs, you know, and we fire administrators, and you know, presidents retire from schools because something a teacher did or something. Like, they don't have control over that, but, you know, America wants its scapegoat, and parents certainly do too. So Mr. Keating was a scapegoat. Any thoughts on that?
It was an easy target.
Easy target. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if not Keating, who? Then you have to blame the kids. You have to blame this institution. You know, you have to reform the entire institution now. No way, that's not happening. It should.
All right. Well, it's 8:00. Any of the final questions? The final words from the Pierstorff family? Because we love having a family affair. This is awesome.
No, I mean, I think my final words I'll give them is just, you know, the core of this movie is to really seize the day, really, you know, write a poem, fly a kite, love deeply, you know, dance, sing. Like, I don't care if you're an engineer, an architect, or whatever, that romantic spirit, you know, in our souls needs to sort of be able to be free. And however you can do that, you know, do that. Seize the day, whether it's through athletics or through art, seize the day.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, any final thoughts?
Danny Savage said thank you. Danny Savage is going to be hosting a virtual educational seminar very soon. We can't figure out what movie, but he will be hosting one, right, Danny? So thank you to Sam and Hakeem and Dean. And thank you everyone that participated. I remind you that we have a lot of great educational seminars coming up. We're doing the popcorn every Friday, so please continue to do that. Support that. And then we're doing the drive-in movies at John Thurman Field on August 14th, and we'll be launching that very soon. We appreciate your support for the State Theater, and then Sam's got a book Leaves of Grass.
Reed
Walt
Whitman.
Whitman. Yep.
He's gonna be canceled soon. I know it.
Yeah.
Read
And
him
I'll be
before
sending-
it's canceled.
I'll be sending you all a email that has like kind of some survey on how you enjoyed the different aspects of this week, and also a link to donate to the State Theater, because as you know, we're a nonprofit and we're closed, so we really appreciate anything that you can do to support the State Theater during these crazy times, and we appreciate that we can kind of engage with our community, and giving you this extra way to engage with the State Theater. So
Yeah,
thank you,
appreciate it.
everyone.
Thank you for allowing us
Uh,
to chat. So, take care, you guys.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Sam. This is awesome.
Pierstorffs.
Thanks, Pierstorff. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.